Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the complex, contradictory, and honestly the absolutely epic story of Simon Bolivar. He's a man who literally reshaped a continent, but then really struggled to govern his own creation.
So let's get right into it. The name El Libertador, you hear that title, the Liberator, and it sounds incredible. But what does it really mean to earn a name like that? And what was the actual cost of that liberation, not just for him, but for the millions of people he freed?
The whole story, in a way, kind of boils down to this one number, 6. It seems simple, but what it represents is just an almost unimaginable achievement.
That's right, 6 modern nations, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Panama, they all owe their independence in a huge way to the campaigns led by this one man. His armies didn't just win a few battles, they completely redrew the map of South America and brought 3 centuries of Spanish rule to a grinding halt.
Which leads to the big question, right? How does a guy born with a silver spoon into one of the wealthiest, most powerful families in Caracas end up becoming the guy who wants to tear that whole system down? Well, the answer is in a life that was shaped by early tragedy and some really radical ideas.
Well, his life was marked by tragedy right from the start. He was an orphan at just 9 years old, and when he was sent to Europe for his education, he just soaked up all those new Enlightenment ideals. Liberty, reason, all of it. But the real spark, the thing that changed everything, was watching Napoleon, this supposed hero of the Republic, crown himself emperor. For Bolivar, that was the ultimate betrayal, and it filled him with this deep, burning hatred for absolute power. That moment lit a fire that led him straight to Rome.
Can you imagine standing on a hill overlooking that ancient city, making a promise like this? This wasn't just some kid talking big. This was his mission statement. This was the moment the privileged young man became a full-blown revolutionary.
Okay, so he made the vow. Now, how do you make that a reality? Well, we're heading to the battlefield. Because Bolivar wasn't just some philosopher with big ideas, he turned out to be a military strategist of stunning genius.
And when I say genius, I'm not kidding. Just look at his crossing of the Andes. People always compare it to Hannibal crossing the Alps, and for good reason. It was this completely audacious, almost insane plan to march an army through freezing, treacherous mountain passes just to surprise the Spanish. It was a Hail Mary pass, and it worked.
And that incredible gamble, crossing the Andes, led straight to the Battle of Boyacá. And that was just the beginning. Look at this list. Boyacá, Carabobo, Pichincha, Junín. These weren't just battles. They were the nails in the coffin of the Spanish Empire in South America. Each victory was another piece of the continent breaking free.
And just to give you a sense of the sheer scale of what we're talking about, think about this number, 75,000 miles. That's how far his campaigns covered. That's like going around the entire Earth 3 times. The man was absolutely relentlessly driven.
And after all that struggle, all that fighting, in 1813, he's given the name that will stick with him forever. El Libertador, the Liberator. He earned that title, every single letter of it.
But here's the thing. For Bolivar, freeing all these countries, that was just phase 1. He had a much bigger dream in mind. He didn't just want to liberate, he wanted to unite.
And this was his baby, his grand vision, Gran Colombia. Think of it like a United States of South America. He figured that if they all stayed separate, they'd be weak, vulnerable to European powers, or just as likely, fighting amongst themselves. For him, unity was the only way to survive.
Okay, and this is where the story gets really complicated. This is where we get to the heart of Bolivar's paradox. The man who dedicated his life to fighting tyranny. What happens when he actually gets power? Well, as it turns out, it's not so simple.
This code right here, it gets right to the heart of his thinking. As he tried to govern, he started to believe that the lofty ideals he learned in Europe just wouldn't work in the harsh reality of South America. He thought that people weren't ready for a full-on democracy. They needed a stronger hand.
And you can see that contradiction so clearly here. His stated ideal was liberty from kings, but in practice, he started pushing for a presidency for life, which, let's be honest, sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship. He dreamed of a unified republic of equals, but he was terrified that racial divisions would tear it all apart, so he sought to clamp down on any dissent with an iron fist.
And this wasn't just talk. He took real, ruthless action. He ordered the execution of one of his own top generals, Manuel Piar. Why? Piar was a war hero, a man of mixed-race heritage who was incredibly popular. And Bolivar got scared. He feared PR was stirring up racial resentment that could shatter his fragile new republic. It was a brutal decision to preserve unity at any cost.
So what happens when the liberator and the would-be autocrat are the same person? Well, this tension, this paradox, it defined the end of his life and created the incredibly complicated legacy he left behind. By 1830, it was all falling apart. Gran Colombia, his great dream, was collapsing into civil war. Bolivar himself was sick, heartbroken, and felt totally betrayed. His final words, "Those who serve the revolution plow the sea." It's just so full of despair. It's like saying everything he did, all that monumental struggle, was for nothing.
But, his story didn't end with his death. Far from it. At first, many vilified him, but then he was brought back and celebrated as a national hero. Fast forward a couple centuries, and you have leaders like Hugo Chavez literally naming the country the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, wrapping themselves in Bolivarian's flag, even digging up his bones. His image has been used and abused by all sides ever since.
And that's what leaves us with this massive question that people are still arguing about today. Was he a hero or a tyrant? The liberator who broke the chains of an empire, or an autocrat who couldn't live up to his own ideals? The real answer is, he was both. And that's exactly what makes his story so powerful and so incredibly relevant even now.